Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Big Apple School podcast, where the goal is to help you improve your English through listening. My name is Benjamin, and today I'm joined by three wonderful guests. And our first guest today is
Ken from the Philippines.
And our second guest, a blast from the past,
is Katya. Hello.
So welcome back. And of course, we have
Ugur from Turkey.
So today's topic, we're going to be talking about vintage items, retro vintage items. And we have a few different topics we're going to cover in this area. So the first subject we're going to talk about today is hoarding. So do you consider yourself to be a hoarder? Well, what is hoarding? What would you classify as hoarding?
It's like collecting, different kinds of stuff excessively. It's not just
never throwing away anything.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, wait, I've just realized I'm the only Russian over here.
Yeah.
Ooh, I've got a lot to say on the topic, actually.
Well, yes, we do have, we will definitely discuss this. Well, is your balcony filled with items? Are you a balcony hoarder?
I have a tiny balcony at the moment, and there's no glass. It's just, like open air. So there's literally no chance to store anything over there because it's just going to be blown away. But I do see some balconies, of my neighbors just being full of stuff that I'm pretty sure they don't need and they will never need in their life.
Stuffed to the brim with stuff. And why is it the balcony? Why don't people get do people get garages here?
It depends. Some people do. But, I think it's more like, you need some place where you wouldn't look, so you wouldn't feel guilty about not using all this stuff. And how often do you look at the balcony? How often do you go there?
I mean, I like looking out my window. I like
a window?
Or if you smoke.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm smoking in the balcony. Yeah.
So so tell me about your view from the balcony. Do you keep things on your balcony?
No, not at all. Only my ashtray and pack of ciggies. That's it.
Okay, so you're not a
minimalistic balcony.
Kind of, yeah.
So, well, hoarding, obviously, that, like Ken said perfectly, it's the excessive collection and accumulation of older items. Why are some people hoarders? What drives people to be a hoarder?
You know what? I don't want to sound judgmental here, but I just think like it has something to do a little bit with the psychology. It's like,
defo.
Yeah. Because this kind of reminds me of my grandmother. She collected many different items, which, when I was a kid, I thought about it like, what do we need all these for? It's just maybe like a bad habit somehow.
What sort of items?
Different kinds of clothes, even though they're already kind of torn a bit. But she has also this other hobby of sewing and try to repair, do some kind of, mending. Or different kinds of dishes. Plates.
I have a question to you.
Sure.
So if we, make parallels now between Russia and the Philippines. So did you have this situation when you wanted to use some of those dishes or plates and your grandma would say, no, that's for special day. We can't use it on a daily basis.
I am so happy you've mentioned that because actually she was exactly like that. And the funny thing is, some of them are not even used like totally. They're just there for display. Yeah. So that whenever we had guests, she could show off basically, we have some, imported plates from Japan. Yeah.
Oh, so they were vintage plates from Japan,
yes.
From the Japanese.
Right. Because my mom, to this day, she still lives in Japan. And back then she would send us, some plates or even spoon and, forks that were kind of not the ones that you would normally see in the Philippines. And they're just put somewhere. Some of them are really kept where they're totally hidden. And then the others are just for display. And then there was a time when I asked her, can we use that? That looks so fancy. And then she said, no, it's just for display purposes.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Oh, wow.
So these plates are not going to be on your balcony. These are properly cherished.
Yes.
Plates, yeah. Do you have any similar things of plates in your family? Turkey, do you have family silverware?
I never seen them collecting or displaying any kind of item in the house. we were kind of living like minimalistic as possible. So yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. It's clean. It's a clean lifestyle to live. Well, we'll talk about that in a second. But what else do people store on balconies in Russia?
Well, I mean, all sorts of things you can possibly imagine. I mean, it can be some broken things that you hope you'll fix one day. Some instruments, stuff like that. But if we talk about hoarding in Russia, I think it's a common thing. It's really a common. My mom is a real hoarder.
Yeah.
She keeps all those, those dumb, stupid statuettes or souvenirs brought to her from, by people she doesn't even remember.
Or like Kinder Egg surprises and
stuff like that. Yeah. Or, the fridge magnets. And
Magnets
sometimes
or keychains or something. Yeah.
point at something like, do you remember who you got it from? And she's like, oh, well, it might be this person or that person. Like, why do you keep all that? And she has a separate cupboard with like dozens of shelves just for this purpose of, displaying all those souvenir plates and everything. So, and I constantly ask her, like, what do you need it for? And last time I came to visit her, she said, oh, you know what? There were some places, like the plates or things that got broken and I threw them away. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to mark this day red in my calendar and celebrate every year that you finally threw something away. And I think that the reason for that lies down in our Soviet history. Because back in the day, it was hard to get hold of anything. You had to wait in lines. You have to hope that somebody might, bring in from abroad,
Yeah, I remember watching, there was this series on YouTube discussing old Soviet history artifacts. And I remember people collected things like plastic cigarette, not handbags, so plastic cigarette bags with the Marlboro logo on it. And people would like sell.
Oh my God, are you serious?
People would sell this thing and these things, and it would be very prestigious to have these things back in the Soviet days.
That's interesting. So yeah, I think it just comes back, to history. But speaking of plates and dishes and whatnot, it's a very common thing in Russia as well, to have those plates, glasses, you name it, and never use them, because it's for special occasion. Some people might take it out and use it for like New Year's or something. And my family used to be the same. Like, my family would take out these beautiful plates and everything for New Year and birthday celebrations. But later on, they realized, through sad, events, but that it's what is called the syndrome of postponed life. When you keep the best thing for the later, you buy, a beautiful outfit or something, a great sweater, and you think, oh, I'm going to wear it for different events. But then you never do. It gets old, it gets outdated, or, things like that. So, and my mom finally realized that this syndrome of postponed life isn't doing her any good. So she started to actually use those plates. So use those, outfits, jewelry, and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. She still doesn't throw away most of the souvenir stuff though, but I'm waiting. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping.
Well, I believe earlier there was a podcast about minimalism, like quite a long time ago. A long time ago, but I wasn't here. But let's quickly touch on that subject because it's quite relevant. Would you consider yourself to be a minimalist, or Ken?
Right now, yes, but I just want to go back a little bit to hoarding. Although,
go for it. Yeah.
I'm not sure if I can qualify that as hoarding because, well, as I've already mentioned, my grandmother, she used to collect many different things. Well, technically, she was a hoarder. Yep. And then partly I kind of, got that habit because I remember when I used to have different beautiful notebooks. Yeah, Snoopy, Mickey Mouse, again from Japan, or it can be, from somewhere else given by my aunt. So I just collected them. And then going back to the syndrome that, Katya described earlier. So I was thinking, okay, I'm not going to use them now because I'm going to use them later on for some kind of purpose. And whatever that purpose may be, it never occurred to me what it was. I just wanted to collect them. And I thought they were too beautiful to be used. And instead of using them to school, I used the ones that I bought from the Philippines, which were nothing special, just ordinary, because I thought, well, they're too nice. Like, I'll find an occasion, sort of. to use those beautiful notebooks, but I never did. And to be honest with you right now, I can't even remember where they are. I don't remember throwing them away, but then I don't even know where they are. So that's funny.
Yeah.
But going back to your question, minimalist. Yes, I am because, I want, if we talk about the flat, I want it to be simple, clean, spacious, not with so many decorations or unnecessary things. Because, let's face it, I live abroad. I don't own the flat.
Yeah.
And even if I want to make it look fancy, I don't want to spend my money there knowing that I'm not going to own it at the end of the day. So the best approach is to be a minimalist.
Yeah, it's a very flexible thing. I definitely used to be a hardcore hoarder, and then I can.
Oh, to what extent? Oh, tell us.
Yeah, my mother would definitely vouch for me on this, for sure. I used to just collect things. I kind of wanted to have a studio. Do you know Paul Smith? Paul Smith, the famous fashion designer. Well, I read a book of his, and he had this artist studio which had all these little figurines, and like you said with your mother, she collects all these little souvenir things, and I wanted a studio like his. And unfortunately, it just got to the extent where I just had too much stuff, and it was just it was not very pleasant for my.
What sort of things did you collect?
All sorts of junk. All sorts of junk, like road signs to
road signs. Where'd you get them?
Just on the side of the street.
Well, isn't that considered stealing if you find a road sign on the side of the street?
Well, if it's discarded on the street, then maybe
right.
But road
wink,
signs.
Wink.
That's so random, though. Like,
yeah.
Who collects such things? It's just...
I mean, that was just one of many different things.
Come on. People collect all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Like some people collect empty coffee cups, like the disposable ones, the pens, the ear, you name it. You can literally point at any object in this room and there will be people collecting it. I have a story when... I have a group mate. We studied together at university, and she was tutoring. So she came to one girl's place, and she was like 15 years old or something. She was collecting chairs.
Chairs.
Oh, she had like chairs stacked, on top of each other. So people collect all sorts of things.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
Well, basically, I used to collect way too much stuff, and then I went the complete opposite way. I'd say I'm now like a hardcore minimalist. Like I really like to keep my lifestyle as clean as possible, as free from peripheral junk as possible.
Does that mean that when you came to Russia and, if you need to move or something, you can pack all your belongings in one single suitcase?
Yes, but I just bought a computer, so...
Oh, like a PC?
Like a PC. So that's the only thing that would be difficult to pack. But yeah, in theory, yes. Yeah.
That's how I've been living for the last 10 years, with one large suitcase or luggage. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
you have my admiration.
So Ugur, of course, was in Thailand, Vietnam. So yeah. And when you were in those countries, did you collect any items?
Just for souvenir, my friends were asking, all right, could you please buy that for us, or keychain, as you said, or a magnet or something. Just
but it wasn't that
things.
You collected
no,
it.
No,
you kind of like, they asked you bought for
people.
people. Yeah.
Not for myself.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And would you say that having a minimalist lifestyle was like good for your head?
Yeah, I guess so. So you live as compact as possible, so you don't need to care much about what you need to carry with you, and for your next destination, it's quite convenient to just pick up and just move.
Yeah.
I think it makes it so easy for you to like kind of move then. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's flexible.
You're not attached to things.
Yeah.
I really envy you how you can keep just one suit, because
right?
I've been working on that. As I've said, I consider myself a minimalist, but for some reason, I feel like I still have more stuff like that I have to let go. But wow, one suitcase. Wow.
It's liberating, believe me. Yeah. You don't need to think about the things that you owe. So
yeah. Exactly.
They're just things.
And also, I remember many years ago, I lost my wallet in my room, and I had so much junk in my room, and I got so angry. I flipped the bed over looking for this wallet, and I just couldn't find it, and I just realized, all right, time to to de-junk, to declutter.
Declutter.
Yeah, great word, declutter, meaning to get rid of junk.
But
So, yeah.
I like also the word that he used. It's liberating.
Liberating.
Yes. And yeah.
So I am surrounded by 3 people who consider themselves minimalists.
Yeah.
And I am not one. I'm so far from being a minimalist. I love the idea, but at the same time, I get so easily sentimentally attached to things. Like,
That's the thing. Yeah, sentimental attachment is
like, how could I possibly throw this away? This was a gift from my sister or my fiance or something. And then, we have a special box with my fiance where we keep like all the little gifts, all the cards, all the letters, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I can't just throw it away. That has too much sentimental value.
Yeah. Well, exactly. That's one of the most. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Well, speaking of sentimental items, I used to, by the way, also collect them because for me, they serve a certain memory in your life because you value the people around you. Well, especially when they're very important to you, right? So letters, different kinds of gifts, in fact. They can be in the form of clothes, some kind of display. And it was so hard for me to let go of them. I remember when I had to leave the Philippines in 2013 to fly to Kazakhstan, I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do with these? It's like a sin to just throw them away because remember, these presents were given to you because you mean something to them. And it was like a crime to me. But then I told myself, but I can't take them with me to Kazakhstan. And, at that time, of course, I didn't own a flat. So there was no way I could keep them. So with a heavy heart, I said goodbye to them. But anyway, it's not the present or the gift that counts. It's the thought that is more important. So just to sort of appease myself, it's okay. I will remember all of these.
Unless it's a pet, you can't just throw away.
Well,
of course.
But what's interesting? Once or twice a year, I get, to all my things and I try to declutter. And every single time I have several bags of things that I just give away or throw away or whatever. But at the same time, every single time I do it again, there are still things that I don't need that I give away or throw away. How come? How does that happen? Especially when you need to move from apartment to apartment. But speaking of minimalism, I think it's kind of harder to be one these days when we live in this society of consumerism and consumerism.
Yeah, we were definitely going to talk about that. But just one quick question: why do people like vintage items? Is it just the sentimentality of it? Why does the word vintage have a positive connotation? Why do people associate vintage with, positive things?
I think it also goes with the mentality that if you have something vintage, you're kind of cool because it goes against what is popular or trendy at the moment. Yeah, so it gives a sense of like individuality, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I guess so. It makes you different. It makes you stand out sometimes when you have like an outfit or something that people haven't seen, something different, something you can't find in a store. Especially now, when the clothing items, they look the same. And if you go to a shop, it's all the same.
It's eye-catching to see something different, especially if we talk about, clothes, like everyone's wearing the same thing and then, oh my God, that looks like from the 80s. How cool, right?
Yeah. But why is it that we think this is cool? Just because it stands out? Or what is it that makes new things not so cool? And
I think there can be different reasons. Standing out being just one of them. Then
romanticizing maybe.
Romanticizing it. There's actually a term, which I do not remember the name of course, for this nostalgia about the times you never lived in. That's how people, a lot of people feel about the 90s. They've never lived in the 90s or like the 80s or whatever, but they kind of feel nostalgic about them. So maybe this is the romanticizing of those times.
Yeah. It is true. I guess, would all of you agree if I said, oh, I'd love to go back to the 2000s? Would you all like to go back to the 2000s?
Oh, no, I'm good.
Are you
I'm
happy
good.
here? Okay, well,
I was happy.
90s were...
Everyone has like
90s
cool
was okay.
associations with the 90s. Maybe not in Russia. People are a bit scared about that.
But I mean, at the same
But-
time, 10 years from now, people won't have a good association with the 20s. So, you know,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I don't have this, you know, like feeling like, oh, I'd love to go back to the 80s or the 70s or whatever. Each era, each decade has its own problems and everything. But now I can enjoy all the technology, like all the smartphones, the internet and everything. Like I'm not ready to give it up. So
Fair enough. Well, let's look at consumerism. So you mentioned consumerism. I think maybe we've talked a little bit about this in other podcasts as well. But let's start with the environmental consequences of consumerism. What does modern day consumerism do to the environment?
I guess the main thing is the amount of rubbish. Because, you know, let's face it, consumerism is all about this attitude of wanting to buy and possess, you know, things that are not very necessary. But then again, we live in a consumerist society. We want something new, something different. And so as we accumulate all of these items, whatever they are, they can create this huge amount of waste. And that's not very helpful to the environment.
Yeah, and what actually happens to waste? Well, in Russia, where does the waste go? Does it go to China or does it stay here?
it stays here. It's all horrible over here with the trash and everything because we don't have many recycling facilities, and the ones that we do don't get enough funding, so they have to eventually close down. So it all accumulates and just basically there's nothing. Well, some companies burn it, but then again, it has the CO2 emissions, which is definitely not good for the environment.
I think it's probably the other emissions that are like the worst. Like CO2 is one thing, but it's like,
yeah.
it's
Well,
like the plastic.
Plastic.
Talking about the environmental, let's say, impact or whatever of consumerism. So not many people know, but actually, so we know that consumerism is directly associated with, let's say, fast fashion. So the companies and, all those shops that we all know and love, let's say like Zara, H&M, you name it, they produce enough clothing to actually issue new collection every single week. So it's 53 mini collections per year. Now, fast fashion companies, they need to produce cheap clothes and they need to do that fast. So, and by doing that, they actually become third biggest pollutants in the world because they use cheap materials, toxic materials. So if you look at the surrounding areas on like Google Maps or anything, in China, for example, they have toxic rivers. People are suffering and everything. So then we wear these clothes, with this toxic dye or something, and they kind of accumulate. So,
well, coming back to what you were saying previously about balconies and people wanting to repair things in the future, leaving things to repair at a later date, would you say older items were made to last?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, think about it. Is it okay that I'm just chatting so much?
Oh, yeah.
Feel free to shut me up any moment, But, now the things don't last because of business. It all always comes down to money these days. So the companies are not interested in you having your laptop for 15 years. Who wants that?
Yeah.
Who's going to bring them money?
Well, what's the longest time you've had a phone for or a computer for?
I guess average 3 years or something.
Yeah,
for the
3 years.
smartphone. Yeah, this I guess the optimum life for a smartphone that you can use in a way.
Yeah.
And for laptop, it's longer than that. I guess 5 or something.
Well, I actually feel really vintage. As we speak, in front of me, I have a laptop which is from 2012. So that's already
Are you serious?
10 years old.
10 years.
And right now, I have an iPhone 5.
And it's still working. It's still satisfying.
Working. Exactly. So
Oh,
hopefully these things, well, definitely my laptop was built to last. Definitely. But I do agree a lot of technology was built to
I have an example
be
actually.
disposable. Yeah, go on.
So on average, the modern washing machine lasts about like 5 years before it breaks down. Of course, you can repair it, but still. Now, I have a friend and she got hold of an old washing machine. I think it was Bosch or something like that. So from her grandma. And by the time she got it, the washing machine was 30 years old, never been repaired. And then she had some problem with it. And she called, a repairman. And he said, you know what? That's because it's made of metal. So, and most of the insides are made of metal. So, and not plastic that we have now. And actually, the only thing that she had to fix in that exact washing machine was the rubber gasket. Oh. So, but the motor and everything is still good to go. It's still good. And the repairman said, you know what? When it breaks down, you just change one detail or another, and it's good to go for another 30 years.
Cool.
Ta-da!
I was looking at flats a few months ago with my girlfriend, and we walked into this one flat, and this old lady had this old Soviet fridge, and it was still working. It was very loud, but but it was working. I couldn't believe that. Yeah, that fridge would still last all these years. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, what's the shortest that you owned a device or something? Like if we talk about devices.
Oh, I mean, there's so many crappy devices out there. There's so many things.
Like a burner phone.
Yeah, definitely some headphones. Oh my God, the headphone cables always seem to break for some reason.
Oh yeah.
Well, what about you, Ken? What's the longest time you've owned a phone for?
That was my HTC Desire I, which I bought in 2014 when I was still in Kazakhstan. And then finally it gave way in the year 2021.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yes. But I must say that in the latter years of its life, I hardly ever used it because then I already bought a new one, but then it was still functioning until one day when I tried to charge it, it just wouldn't. So I had to, discharge or, get rid of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But, nowadays, I prefer to buy phones every, let's say, 2 to 3 years. Not because, I want something fancy. No, it's just there are certain features that old phones don't have, which the new ones have. And so I got to have them. I got to keep up with the times. Yeah. So
yeah, I do agree. Definitely. I had this app, this flashcard app, which I used to learn Russian words, and it really helped me. But then because I have my trusty old iPhone 5, unfortunately, a lot of apps just don't work.
And they don't support.
Yeah. It's
the
kind of
old
crazy
versions.
how these developers have excluded iPhone 5s. I feel so marginalized as a result of this. But yeah. Well, what about you, or any technology that you have not been satisfied with in terms of its life?
I guess the mobile phones are the biggest thing that you need to update, I guess, in every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So that you need to keep up with all the apps and everything, as Ken said.
Yeah.
So I guess computers and PCs and the mobile phones, I guess, are the biggest, the most important things that you need to update from time to time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I also have this camera. It's a digital camera, Samsung.
Yeah.
It's kind of bulky. I bought it in 2015, but it still works. It has great quality.
Like a Handycam?
No, not exactly. Just your average, digital camera, but works perfectly to this day.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Do you think governments should ban disposable, crappy technology because of it creates so much waste? Do you think that this is something the government should do? Or do you think, no, not at all, it's not the government's responsibility?
I just can't see how they can do that. Because people would still find, ways to use that, to find that. And then, sometimes it's needed maybe. So look, they can't even handle the situation we have at the moment. Mm-hmm. How can they handle something like disposable stuff?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like maybe they need to have some kind of regulation to the companies to make sure that, the products, whatever they make, can last longer. although it sounds a bit authoritarian, once the government, gets in the way and tells companies it should be like this or like that, doesn't sound very democratic. But I guess we need some kind of regulation, because also on the part of the companies, by doing or producing such products, it encourages people to keep producing a lot of waste and encouraging people to buy more things that they don't really need.
Well, what do you think about, plastics are the biggest problem, I'd say, because plastics pollute oceans, etc. And they actually have bad things that negatively influence your hormones. Do you think obviously plastics are quite important in the medical sphere and in like daily hygiene sphere, for instance, disposable razors, toothbrushes and stuff. Do you think we could have old school wooden toothbrushes?
No. I mean, look, we can even have nowadays companies, when they produce the packaging and everything, they always have the alternative of another sort of plastic, which is recyclable, because, there are like different sorts of plastic and everything. But most companies just go with the like packaging type 7, which is non-recyclable because it's cheaper. And again, these days, we live in a very money-driven world, so it all comes down to money. They wouldn't be interested in that and spending more money to produce something to last.
Or you can replace plastic with other products. I remember in Vietnam, the disposable toothbrushes were made of bamboo.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So
you can get them nowadays.
Yeah, people were buying them instead of having the plastic
ones. So
ones.
were the bristles, what were the bristles made of? Was that
was still
like
plastic.
the brush bit? Yeah.
Brush is not made with plastic too. It was kind of...
Oh, really?
It was kind of plant-based of something, yeah.
Wow.
So
cool.
I remember that, and the taste was great.
Oh, no, I could definitely...
Yeah, the taste was great, so people were using that one.
In Novosibirsk, actually.
Cool. Well, because I know in some Arab countries, I believe people use a special type of stick, and it actually works very well, and they don't use toothpaste, I don't think. Yeah. Well, I stopped using plastic razors a long time ago. I actually use a cutthroat razor. Do you know cutthroat?
The metal one, like old school one.
Yeah, but I started using that, literally last year, in April last year, I bought it. And when I started using it, it started cutting my face. Really
Feels
bad.
dangerous.
It is dangerous, but now I got the hang of it, and it's nice. Yeah, you feel like a man when you...
A real man.
when you use it, yeah. But that's a vintage thing. I got into that because I must have seen some old film or something, and I became so...
They actually promote it these days as an eco-friendly alternative to the plastic ones.
Yeah, and all you have to do is replace the metal, the metal razor. But you can actually sharpen the blade if you want to. But that's a whole other art. It takes forever to learn how to sharpen a razor, and you need a special rock for that. It is quite cool, but it just takes a lot of time. Yeah. Could you ever use a cutthroat razor, Ken?
Well, that's a very good question.
Yeah.
I might. So my doors are not totally shut.
Yeah. We can always use an old school safety razor where you replace the blade. It doesn't have to be the cutthroat razor. I mean, I just like the cutthroat razor because it looks cool, but it is dangerous.
One wrong movement.
Yeah, one wrong movement, you're screwed. Yeah. All right. So let's look at other items that we have older cars and more modern cars. Would you say that older cars were also built to last and modern cars are kind of
I'm just
disposable?
going to sit back and relax listening to you. Cause
I was about to say that.
All right. Well, so you've ridden mopeds, motorbikes. Would you say older ones are better than the new ones?
Older ones are kind of performing well when you compare with the new ones, but you need to just visit the repair shop every other week to get them fixed.
Yeah.
But the way you ride them is completely different and kind of cool when you compare with the new electric ones.
Yeah.
But they are consuming lots of gas and oil and everything, so it's not good for the environment.
And what repairs did you have to make to the older bikes? Was it more just...
You need to just replace the chain, you need to replace the igniting
the ignition bit, the spark plugs.
Spark plugs, You need to just replace them every other week or twice a month or something.
Oh, with the older ones?
The older ones, especially if you're riding a Honda Cup 500C, so you need to do that. But if you're riding kind of an electric bike, so it's hassle-free. No problem with that.
Because I had when I lived in Las Vegas, I had a
Sorry, I just remember the story.
But I had were you talking about the story where my car broke down?
No. When you were buying a car, you were selling the car to a guy and it like broke down or something.
Oh my God.
Whoever hasn't heard the story, find this podcast. I don't remember which one it was, but God, look at the outlines or whatever. But you have to hear this story.
But that's the thing is that modern cars have too many electronic components inside it, and it causes such a headache whenever these components stop working, especially in a hot place like Las Vegas, where the hottest temperature I experienced was, I think, 48 degrees Celsius.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, it was just another level. I mean, maybe not quite like Dubai because you have the humidity there. But anyway, the cars just, it really puts strain on the cars. And to be honest, I would rather have like an old school Lada than have a...
Oh, you think that old school Lada would be better in the heat of Vegas? Right.
Well, maybe, I don't know. Maybe the old Zhiguli are like simpler, aren't
Did you understand that there was no AC and no AC could possibly be installed up there,
that's the thing is that when you have such high temperatures, it's actually... sometimes have to turn off the AC because it puts too much strain on your engine. Unless, of course, you have an expensive car, which can...
fuel consumption. Yeah.
Exactly. But I had to turn off the AC in my car because it really strained the engine. It was a Hyundai Accent, which in Russia is a Hyundai Solaris. And and also you would always have problems with the electronics. It just, happy to get rid of that car.
I have a feeling that, remember we talked about romanticizing, different. I have a feeling that you're not romanticizing, but missing the 90s in Russia. With the Zhiguli and everything.
Everyone calls me crazy for wanting a Zhiguli, but I'm hell-bent set on getting a Zhiguli.
I mean, look, it's always, what they say, I live by the motto of my favorite writer, Terry Pratchett. Coming back to where you started is not the same as never leaving. So trying a Zhiguli and then selling it and never wanting to be in it again is not the same as always, dreaming about it. So you should give it a go. You should get one.
I would love to.
Have all the fun.
Well, it's for another podcast, but I want to get my Russian license and then... But there are so many cars on Avito, which is the Russian... in England, we call it Gumtree. It's the equivalent of Gumtree, which is a forum whereby people post listings for used items that they want to sell or get rid of. And there are so many cool cars, so many cool old Russian cars there that I'm a kid in a candy store.
Wow. You like such things.
And they're cheap as well. You can find a really cool old car for 40,000 rubles.
Yeah, then you visit where do you take what do you call this place where you take your car to be fixed?
Well, the repair shop.
Repair shop.
Yeah.
And then you take this car to the repair shop once a week.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, are there cars produced in Turkey?
We have kind of collaboration with Fiat and Italian Fiat and Renault from France.
Okay, cool.
And they're about to launch their new electric car, I guess, by the end of 2023.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a made in Turkey electric car.
Cool.
So
And would you say cars that come from there are they're higher quality?
Yeah, but I would go for the old muscle cars instead of go for the new one or new technology.
Well, because of the quality.
The quality plus they sound cool in a way, right? So you feel that you're driving a car in a way, right?
Yeah.
If you're riding a muscle or something like.
Yeah, totally agree. I'd much rather have an old
67 Mustang or Camaro. Yeah.
Well, we can talk about cars forever. I mean, it's a really fun
Please
subject.
don't. Do it in a separate podcast.
It's get a room.
Get a room and record a podcast in it.
All right, well, I'm sorry to have to leave cars. If you guys want to hear more about cars, please write in the comments. We'd love to hear your suggestions. Anyway, so speaking about cars, let's move on to music. So collecting vinyls. Ken, did you ever listen to vinyls or cassettes?
Just cassettes.
Yeah.
Vinyls, it's perhaps my grandmother, but then again, I don't think I've ever listened to one like that's being played. But cassettes, yes. By cassettes, I mean cassette tapes. And what's funny is if we're gonna go down memory lane, I had to buy them quite often because sometimes they get entangled in the cassette player.
Oh yeah, I do remember
back in the
that.
day.
Yeah.
You put the pen and try to just...
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
If you want to do it manually instead of fast forward or rewind. Oh my God, I had some horror stories from way back when, and it was just so frustrating sometimes because I had it, let's say, for about 2 weeks, and then something happens, and then I had to buy a new one. But then again, it was okay because it's, it was kind of cheap then. And so, it was no biggie, but then still kind of frustrating. Instead of buying the CD, of course. It's,
good phrase. No biggie. I love this phrase. It's a great one. It means no big deal. It's amazing. Yeah, just for the listeners. Yeah, great phrase. It's would you say it's American? I'd say it's definitely American. Would you say it's yeah?
I'd say so.
I guess American.
Yeah, no biggie, no big deal. So yeah. Anyway, would you ever collect cassettes? Is this something that you would do now, or is that just too hipster?
When I was a kid, there were only cassettes instead of CDs. So we used to listen through the cassettes. And my father had vinyl collection. I guess he's still keeping them in the storage.
Oh, cool.
With the turntable and everything. So I know both of them in a way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But right now we don't need them.
Well, do we all remember when DVDs first came out? I remember when DVDs first came out, they just felt like
breakthrough, right?
Yeah, from like another planet. Yeah.
It's funny you say that now because,
You show a CD player to modern kids, they're going to look at it like, what the hell is that?
Yeah. No, and sometimes you would jump up and down and the CD would stop playing because, but why do people still collect vinyls? Why are vinyls particularly attractive?
I guess the quality is better than the digital sound because you're manually putting it on the turntable and you just put on the pin on it so you can hear every detail that they record on it.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why people still collecting the vinyls.
Yeah. Well, Katia, would you prefer vinyls or...
See, I don't listen to music much. Like I can turn on a song or something, like play a song once a month or something. So I'm not the right person to talk about that. But I do see a tendency of people to collect the vinyl. So it kind of got popular again. I don't know why. Maybe it's again, like with all the vintage things and everything. But I mean, even the modern bands, they do...
reissuing on vinyls.
Yeah.
For collectors kind of edition kind of thing,
And I guess nostalgia has something to do with it too.
Yeah. Well, in my early 20s, I collected loads of vinyls. It was such like a fun hobby almost.
Was that one of those items that you used to collect?
Yeah. Exactly. One of the
collection.
many things I used to collect. But yeah, in London, there's a big culture of reggae music, and you have stores which are dedicated to selling reggae vinyls. Not that many stores, but you have a few.
Oh, that's very niche.
And it's so cool when you go to these stores and flick through all the collections of vinyls. And sure, it's expensive, but it's just a whole experience in and of itself. And it's almost like a source of meditation almost. Whereas on a computer, you just press play and there you go. Whereas you would really savor the track if you listen to it on vinyl, and also you can play around with it and make
like a DJ.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I definitely love vinyls. What about cameras? I used to love old school film cameras.
I used to own one, actually several of them. But the funny thing is you never know how the picture looks like until it's, once
That's
the film is
why you're
developed.
extra careful about taking a photo. Like, are you sure you're not blinking?
Right.
Yeah.
Concentrate.
And wait
Yeah.
for the flash.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, I definitely prefer the quality of older photography.
You know, again, speaking about things that kind of got back, and got popular again. You know those, like, was it Polaroid and everything cameras are so popular these days.
Right.
And so expensive as well.
Yeah.
Like, I have a student who's a photographer, and she decided to take a couple of, pictures during the photo shoot on her old camera and everything. And she said to buy a film for like 36 pictures, I think it was.
Yeah.
It's more than 2,000 rubles now to buy this.
crazy,
And
isn't
then
it?
you have
film, right?
and then you have to pay someone to develop it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like,
how-
oh my God, it's like an expensive hobby these
Hobby,
days.
No, I used to, when I first came to Russia, when I was in Krasnodar, I had a film camera and I went to the the photo shop to develop the film. And it was, back then it was okay. It was an okay price. It was something like 300 rubles. Actually, maybe no. 300 rubles now is about 900 rubles in today's money, I guess you could say. So yeah, it was quite expensive, I guess. But it was such a fun hobby.
But you know what? Since people back then had only such type of cameras, they had to develop the films, they had to print the photos. So you had some sort of memories that could last.
Yeah.
Of course, that kind of meant that you would have tons of photo albums that you would have no idea what to do with. So, I'm kind of in between minds what is better, to have those albums, physical albums, you can leaf
Turn the
through, look at the
pages,
photos and everything, or to have everything digital. But then again, it's not trustworthy. Nobody can guarantee that your hard drive or anything won't crash and you won't lose all the photos. So it's kind of like, safety,
Physical copy
but
versus the
taking-
digital.
kind of taking space.
Yeah,
Oh,
my dad takes his time to really make beautiful old school photo albums. And at home we have, back in London at home, we have a collection of old photo albums, and it's really special. You flick through these albums and you take your time. Whereas, now a lot of people just keep everything on their phone. Or,
You see, as much as I like, I liked, film cameras, but then somehow I have a feeling of kind of like regret, because we had lots of photos, but then we don't have the films anymore. So there's no way to reproduce them except to take a photo of the photo, if you know what I mean, and then upload them to your social, media accounts, which I do from time to time. It's kind of like sharing my, childhood memories, right?
Yeah.
Well, that looks nice though. We actually tried to digitize most of the photos, at least of our family, just to keep them somewhere.
I don't know. That's why I feel like, children today are so lucky, because there is more, it's highly likely for them to be able to keep their photos now for a long time, because, we can store them in clouds or whatever other, means to save them. Unlike with, film cameras and films, you got to have the copy of the film. Otherwise, there's no
But
way
then
of
again, you
reproducing.
can't just depend fully on an iCloud or some other device. I remember in 2017, I had a big 3-week trip around the west coast of America. Different, 5 states, different cities, loved it. But I stored all my photos on my phone. And at that moment, I didn't, make any sort of
Backup.
on the cloud. I lost everything when my phone just crashed.
Oh my
I tried to get
God.
back. No, I lost all the numbers, the messages, the photos, and I was so sad about the photos. I only tried, I kind of went through different chats and everything where I sent my friends the photos. I'm like, okay, I have at least 15 photos from those 3 weeks of traveling. Like, oh my God, I was so sad.
Devastating. Yeah.
That's sad. Yeah.
The modern reality.
But so advantages and disadvantages
Yeah, of course.
digital versus old school. Well, I was also going to speak about clothes. So secondhand clothes. I used to love buying secondhand clothes, and to be honest, I still occasionally do if I
It's
find
fun.
It's fun, but in Russia, a lot of people have negative attitudes towards.
They sure do.
Yeah, do you want to explain that? Why?
Well, I think that's mostly connected with the fact that earlier in the secondhand shops, you used to have really old, ugly, and horrible quality of clothes. It's usually, you would just hope that you wouldn't have like lice or something in it. So I think that's why. So whereas now we have several vintage stores in Novosibirsk and you can find really cool clothes there.
Yeah, I've seen a few. Yeah, there's, second hand?
There's also one not far
Mega
from here,
Hand.
which is called Gusto. They don't have much of male clothing, but still you can find so many cool things.
That's
over
one
there.
thing I realized. I went to the second-hand shop and there was so many female clothes and almost no.
That's
Nothing for men.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, they usually say like, oh, I think that all comes down to the fact that, I mean, look, a lot of women are shopaholics. Like, let's face it. How often do you buy new clothes? And why? Usually, at least I can see the examples of my male friends and, my dad. They buy things when something's wrong with the old one.
Yeah.
It's got a tear that is, that you can't mend anymore and everything. But they would never just, oh, you know what? I'm tired of this thing. I'm just going to... No. They buy things and like wear them for years and years and years. Whereas we girls, we tend to be a little bit...
Speaking of which, just to prove that right, I have this shirt which I've been wearing since 2014. It's the year 2022 now, and it's still with me. And I'm just waiting for it to be totally, torn for me to buy a new one.
And then actually about this vintage and secondhand shop that I'm talking about in Novosibirsk, whenever they get hold of lots of male clothing, they don't sell them. They give them, to
Charities.
Yeah, because there are so many people who need that.
That's nice. Well,
Yeah.
that's a kind of nice thing.
Were there vintage shops in Vietnam and Thailand, or is it not really a thing
Not
there?
really. Not
Yeah.
really.
What about Turkey?
Turkey, we have lots of in Istanbul, but mostly like retrospective kind of an era, like
Yeah.
70s clothing or 80s clothing. It's not
Yeah.
kind of a used or second hand, but a specific, if people want to wear kind of specific eras clothing or the fashion, they just go there and buy it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's quite, because in London, well, in England, we have many
Oh, God,
charity
yeah.
shops. Yeah, and it's almost on every major street, you'll see at least one or two charity
I have such a
shops.
good, memory connected with London and going to Camden Market.
Yeah, Camden Market.
Oh,
Yeah.
God, I love this place. It's like a mecca for all the quirky people and everything. And I remember going to a secondhand shop over there and I found 2 sweatshirts and one of them was like Christmassy, all Christmassy. It was like bright red with all those decorations. I fell in love immediately. Bought it for like £10. Still with me.
Yeah.
The sleeves are kind of short right now, but I don't care. It's just so sweet.
Yeah.
And it was in 2013. So 9 years,
9 years,
still
yeah.
wearing it.
Yeah. Well, in England, there's a lot of people buy used clothes, and there's not really that much stigma. I mean, maybe someone's grandma died, and
You wouldn't know.
but even
Yeah.
still, like,
I mean, you wouldn't know if anybody died, if that's a dead person's clothes. So how would you know? Nobody's going to know.
yeah. In America too, there are lots of charity shops, and you can find some really good deals. And a lot of people actually have a business on eBay flipping clothes. What I mean by flipping clothes means by buying some old items and selling the items at a higher price. So a lot of people have eBay flipping businesses where they, go to charity shops on discount days. And
Oh, yeah. Isn't that what the main character in Breaking Bad was doing? Just buying things and then selling them on eBay,
yeah, exactly. Well, was it Jesse? Did that?
Jesse
or was-
Pinkman.
That was the wife of the main character who was sick. I don't remember
Walter,
names.
yeah.
His wife was
I
doing
don't
that.
remember her name right now. What was it?
Yeah.
But yeah. But in America there are so many vintage stores, and
In America, they call them thrift
stores.
stores.
Yeah.
And
Thrift
actually,
stores, yeah.
they use it a lot as a verb. Like, let's go thrifting. Like,
Yeah.
do you want to go thrift?
Yeah, to thrift. Exactly.
And I know one thrift store in Boston area, and they have like clothes on rails and everything, but they have one room, and in there it's just huge pile of clothes. And if you buy anything from there, it's like $2 or $3 per pound of clothes. So they weigh the clothes, and then
Cool.
you buy per weight. And it's
Yeah,
fun.
I have heard of that actually. Well, just interesting. Well,
It's like a
you
treasure
said-
hunt,
Yeah, it's a verb to thrift. It's a regular. I guess it's a regular verb. I
Yeah,
have thrifted.
Thrifted.
Yeah, many times. Okay, all right. So yeah, regular verb thrift. All right. So what else can you buy in secondhand shops usually? What did you notice in the UK from secondhand shops?
Oh, you can buy absolutely anything. Like, but I think it's usually all the same things. Like, no matter what country you're in, it's clothing, shoes,
bags,
accessories, bags, stuff like that.
Well, yeah, what I noticed in the UK, you can buy books, loads of secondhand books.
Oh
of
my
course.
God. Oh my
Yeah.
God. America. Love America. God bless America and everything. And their thrift stores. Why? Goodwill.
Yeah.
You go to Goodwill,
yeah.
clothes sometimes are horrible. You need to actually hunt for good clothing, but books. I remember coming to Goodwill just because I had like half an hour to kill and everything. I noticed several books of Nabokov, and just so
Yeah.
you know, I was working in a department which was founded by him, so it's kind of like our founding father. And I saw these books hardcover, looked absolutely new for like $1 a piece. I'm like, oh, you're coming home with me.
Wow.
And then board games for like $3-4. And in America, I haven't. Well, actually, that's a thing in Novosibirsk now too. I used to buy a lot of like dishes or like baking sheets, stuff like that. Because if you buy it new, it's kind of expensive, like $30 for a baking sheet.
Cooking items. Yeah, exactly.
oh my
Cooking
God.
items. Yeah. Would people in Russia buy used cooking items?
I don't think you can buy that used because, we were brought up by our Soviet moms and grandmas. You would never throw that away.
You just
My
keep it
mom
at
has
home,
had
yeah.
her like baking things and like cooking items for 20, 30 years. We recently were making waffles on a waffle maker, which is from 1987.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
87 works well, actually.
Wow.
Just perfect. So, but if you go to a vintage store over here in Novosibirsk, you can find some dishes over there, mostly like, for the salads, stuff like that. So, but not many people just take them there. That's the problem.
Yeah.
But Goodwill, oh
Yeah,
God,
Goodwill's
I
a
miss Goodwill. Oh,
great
yeah.
shop. When I was in Vegas, I remember I bought some golf clubs there, mainly for protection, but also to play.
Which sums up all you need to know about Vegas.
But also to play golf with. But it was amazing. Only $3 for a proper driver. For those of you, do you know what a driver is? It's the club that you use, the golf club that you use to hit the ball as far as possible. And then you have irons, which are the mid-range
No golf
clubs.
players over here, huh?
Yeah, you can't really play
No
golf
one.
in Russia. It's too cold for it. But in America, people love golf. And
Yeah, they do.
They have these things called driving ranges, which obviously you don't drive your car there. But you hit golf balls as hard as you can. And it's really fun, actually. And sometimes you have a guy who drives around in a little golf car who collects the balls, and sometimes you try to hit the car.
Just for fun.
Yeah, but the car has like an iron cage around it because it knows that everyone is going to try and hit it. But yeah. All right, well, let's finish off by naming one vintage item of personal significance in your family. So you mentioned plates before.
Right.
I was going to say my personal item would be my parents bought this old fan. It's like a really heavy iron fan. I think it's called a stiff key fan. Stiff Key's it's a village, I think, somewhere in England. And it's so heavy. It's so cool. I think it's from the 20s or maybe even
Really?
earlier. Yeah, it's really old, and it's like heavy, I think, iron, and there's the brass fan blades, and you have to be so careful with this fan because if you put your finger in it, it's not like the plastic fans where if you want to play around with
Say
them,
goodbye to your finger.
you will say goodbye to your finger.
dear.
It's amazing, but it's beautiful. So that's my vintage item. Do you have a particular item of significance?
I don't have, but my mom, she's still keeping her grandmother's ring.
Okay.
So yeah, it's kind of like 95 years kind of
Oh, cool.
traditional. So grandmother to her mother to mom. So yeah, she's
Yeah.
keeping that kind of a vintage item. Yeah.
Yep.
That's interesting. I'm just trying to think about any sort of item that has been passed through generations. We don't have anything like that. But if I think about my parents, let me think. I think that waffle maker from 1987 might be a good.
That's a
Yeah.
very
I
good
mean,
one.
it works so well. I'm definitely gonna take it if they don't need it anymore. And yeah, I think that's it. That's it. I mean, we got a lot of stuff from my dad who passed away last year. So in the garage and everything, we just don't know what to do with that. So I'm like, okay, I guess it just stays here with us,
Yeah.
But
Fair
yeah,
enough.
so the waffle maker it is. A waffle maker.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I would say apart from the plates, a singer sewing machine.
Singer,
From way back from the 80s, I
Oh.
guess, or even late 70s.
They're really good quality, aren't
They
they?
Yes.
are really
with the
good
pedal,
quality.
right?
With the pedal. I must say though that even though it's still around, it's in my aunt's house, but they don't use it. But they keep it for nostalgic, reasons because it was used by my grandmother, and I remember growing up whenever a shirt needs to be mended, my grandmother would use that. So it's still there for that purpose.
Well, you know what? When nostalgia wears off, you can kind of sell it for good money.
Well, yes.
Practical.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much, guys. So we want to hear your comments. We want to hear suggestions. If there's a particular part of this podcast that was interesting to you and you want to hear more about it, do let us know. Or if you have any questions about any of the words or idioms or anything we said, do let us know. And make sure to subscribe to us on our various social media platforms, including VK, Telegram, and Apple podcasts. And also visit our website, www.bigappleschool.com, where you can find some other interesting podcasts like this one. And you can find articles and more information about the courses that we offer. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye for
See
now.
ya.